Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
That kid is back on the escalator again.
Ain't gonna hurt.
Is my boomstick!
Game over, man. Game over.
Welcome to The Bargain Bin. He is your host, Ben Mason.
And he is your co-host, Sandra Luketic. And today we're talking about 1995's Demon Knight. We assume if you're listening to this episode, you've already seen the movie.
Is that the full title, Demon Knight, or do you need to prefix it with Tales from the Crypt?
Okay, fair enough. 1995's Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight.
Boom.
So?
Well, aren't you going to ask me?
I'm dreading it. But, I've been dreading it this whole time. Same with every other episode. Sandro, what did you think of this movie?
That's a great movie, man.
Calm. I did not expect that.
Dude, I've watched this movie now 3 times.
That's awesome.
I watched it previously when you had just recommended it to me, and I watched it twice for this review, and I had literally no issue watching it the second time. No regret, no remorse. I was completely fine with watching it again. I would probably have watched this movie again, even if it wasn't for a podcast. Maybe not, obviously, within days of the viewings, like I did. But I would definitely watch this movie again.
It is so much fun. And while it's horribly dated, it's endlessly rewatchable.
Honestly, dude, I worried that we weren't going to have much to talk about in this episode because it would just be positives. Now, I did try to force myself to find a few nitpicks just so we can have something to talk about.
Oh yeah, I've got a few too. It's not a perfect movie. It's just a really fun film.
Okay, so do you want to start with the good or the bad?
Well, I just kind of want to start off talking about the show a little bit.
Okay.
Because the feeling of the show really does carry over into the film.
I mean, I love just the startup, and then you hear the classic music, and it's like, I'm watching a movie, and like, I know that there's, this little intro part that's not really tied to the movie in any way, but it just adds to the feel of the show without taking away from the fact that it is a feature-length movie.
Exactly. It's my favorite TV theme and TV intro of all time, and it was a perfect lead-in to the little, I don't know what you'd call it, intro section, I guess, where you've got John Larroquette as the acid-soaked killer, and it cuts right into the movie. The audio by Danny Elfman always grabs me. It was a ringtone on my phone for years. Using the miniatures for like the camera to go down the winding stone staircase and stuff like that, it just puts you into the right frame of mind of what you're going to watch.
What was the point of that little intro part?
I think it was their way of making a big budget version of the Crypt Keeper's introductions that he would do to the television episodes.
Just going like all out for it.
Yeah. Because normally it would start off with him giving a couple like horrible puns, and then he would introduce the show. Like, I call this Twisted Tale Demon Knight. Stuff like that.
Now,
but this time they had more money, so I think they just kind of had more fun with it.
I was perfectly fine with it because I loved seeing the cameo from John Larroquette.
Mm-hmm. Forgotten actor. Great actor.
I'm going to be honest, he's one of those guys for me that's one of those guys. I couldn't tell you what I know him from, but as soon as I didn't really watch that show, like I had a passing familiarity with it, and I'm sure I saw him on it, but I didn't really regularly watch it, right? But he is one of those actors where as soon as I saw him, I was like, "Oh, hey, nice!" Right? Like it was a good little pop, if we want to use wrestling terminology. It
was also a chance. It was a chance for them to throw in the mandatory nudity.
But there wasn't much there, though. They definitely
just like in the show.
They do a lot more later on in the movie, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they kind of keep it to very minimal scenes. But yeah, I mean, that intro was definitely nice for setting up what you're about to watch.
Agreed.
Even though, like, the plot of that had nothing to do with it. It was more just setting a tone, a feeling of it.
I agree. Like I said, you know exactly what you're getting yourself into with this movie based off the first few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the movie starts
with an amazing song of "Hey Man, Nice Shot" by Filter.
I mean, I didn't know the song, but it definitely fit. And we get probably the most, like, Michael Bay moment of the movie with the giant car explosion, which doesn't really make much sense.
Makes no sense, but it's perfect.
But it is a great start to the movie. You get introduced to the main characters in a very direct way, right? Because we don't really learn who they are or what they're doing at this point, but we definitely get a big flashy scene, focuses on the two of them so that you know moving forward, these are going to be the two main characters. And then you'll just have to learn as you go what's going on with them.
Agreed. And I think it was really smart for them to start off the movie with the car chase, because if you start off with that much action and that explosion right off the bat, you don't really mind so much that it does take a little while before the action picks up again throughout the movie.
Yeah, it definitely makes it feel like it has a bit better of a pacing.
Yeah.
And it's unnecessary. It really is unnecessary. But it does start it off great. And it introduces us to what I think are the two best parts of the movie is Billy Zane and William Sadler, who I don't know if I can find an issue with either of their performances.
They played the characters perfectly.
I'm going to gush over Billy Zane.
I am too. He's pure charisma in this movie.
Oh man, when he gets thrown out the window for the first time and he's like, enough of this cowboy shit, and like you're charmed by him, and you know he's the villain, but you still want to like him. Right? Like you
need to put this quote in right here.
Humans! You're not worth the flesh you're printed on! Fuck this cowboy shit! You fucking ho-dunk, po-dunk, well then there, motherfuckers! All you have to do is give me the goddamn key! And we could get on with our lives! Alright, this property is hereby condemned.
I think Billy Zane actually really carries this movie as the villain, oddly enough.
It's rare that it's the villain that carries it, but I mean, it is his charm, it's his interaction with all of the different characters and their temptations that actually provides you with a lot more character development of each of them, and it's kind of done indirectly by the antagonist.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody but Billy Zane could have pulled it off that well.
I'm sure there's somebody else, but like, man, Billy Zane is definitely amazing in this role.
and Bill Sadler too. I mean, that guy's been in everything. Probably my most famous role is Death from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
See, and the thing I like about them is how different they are. Like, Billy Zane is kind of over the top with his charm and his charisma. Not necessarily his mannerisms, but like his character. Even the way that he's so kind of like calm in a lot of situations. Like when Stryker or Breaker, first puts up the barrier on the front door, and he's just like, oh, come on, just give me the key. Like, he has such a nonchalant way of doing it. And then you have Breaker, who's a lot more stoic, who's a lot more rough.
Reserved.
And it's a very different type of role. It's also very calm, but it has such a tension to it. It has such an, like, he is on edge. He is fighting for it. And it's amazing to see how well they can do in two very different roles.
Yeah. They play off of each other perfectly. Honestly, the whole cast really plays off of each other perfectly.
That was one thing I wanted to ask you. Was there any character in the cast that you thought didn't play their role well? Because I can't think of one. I mean, Jada...
Well, let's go through the cast.
Okay, sure.
We've already talked Billy Zane. We've talked William Sadler.
Yeah.
What about CCH Pounder as Irene, the woman who runs the boarding house?
I thought she was great. She brought a very good level of sass to the role. A lot of the like kind of better one-liners come from her. So it's like you don't want to outwardly call it comedic relief, but it does give you a few of the scant moments of like alleviating the tension.
Yeah, she's incredibly affirmative. You can tell she has worldly knowledge. She's the matriarch of the entire cast, I think.
And she does a great job with it. And I mean, I think if we were to look at necessarily the motivations of the character, there's a couple of things I would nitpick. Mm-hmm. Should we get into that now, or just when we're talking about the movie itself?
When we get into the movie, because there's a few other actors I'd like to just mention.
Okay. But yeah, other than that, which we'll get to, she did a great job with her limited role. Yeah.
And she went on to great things afterwards, too. She was one of my favorite parts of the TV show The Shield. Absolutely amazing. I love CCH Pounder. She did so well in this movie.
Absolutely.
Jada Pinkett. Not yet Jada Pinkett Smith.
I think she was great in her role.
Me too. Okay, here's something. Her name is pronounced 3 different ways throughout the movie.
Okay.
You get Geraldine, and Geraldine.
Well, it's spelled really oddly. Like, if I saw this on paper, I wouldn't be sure of which of the pronunciations it is.
I would have said Geraldine. I'm going to call her Geraldine through the movie. Through the podcast, sorry. What about Thomas Hayden Church as Roach?
I thought he was great. I mean,
What a detestable character.
What a detestable character. Like, there's parts of the movie where I hate him way more than I hate Billy Zane. Right?
Yeah.
And like, it's not like a hidden thing that Billy Zane is the main villain. But he does it with such a charm, like such a slyness that you're just not like resenting him. Whereas Roach is just a resentful character. You hate him. He's the one guy where you're like, yeah, I'm glad he got his. Right?
Yeah.
And he's also an idiot. So I love after he says to Cordelia, whores don't have friends or whatever.
Yeah.
And she comes back at him later with the assholes don't have friends. I was like, this is fantastic. But he needs to get more. And he does.
Oh, he does. Two more actors I want to mention. And then we'll get into the actual movie. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
Dick Miller as Uncle Willie. I don't know if you know Dick Miller.
He's another one of those guys that I definitely recognize him.
Okay, well, I went through his filmography and just picked out a few titles of movies and shows that he has done that I have watched.
I only know...
Give me 1 second here.
Okay. He was in Terminator, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Little Shop of Horrors, Bonanza, Gunsmoke, Death Race 2000, Piranha, 1941, The Howling, Twilight Zone the movie, All the Right Moves, V the Final Battle, Gremlins, Terminator, After Hours, Chopping Mall, Night of the Creeps, Project X, Interspace, The Birds, Gremlins 2, Evil Tunes, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm, and Small Soldiers.
I thought you said you picked out a few.
That was a few. There's a lot more.
Yeah, and this is exactly how you know that he's one of those that actor guys. Because he's in so many things. I don't know if anything you listed off, he would have been like a main character. But I guarantee you that he is, and like for me, right? Like I see him on camera and there's almost like there is a familiarity with it. I know who he is. I couldn't tell you who, like what he's from for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But he does a great job.
He is an amazing, solid supporting actor.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there was one more actor I want to talk about.
Okie dokie.
Just very briefly. And that's Charles Fleischer as Wally.
Okay, I mean, he was very limited in it, so I don't know how much I can really say about him.
Do you recognize him at all?
No.
He was the voice of Roger Rabbit.
Never in a million years would I have gotten that.
I know, right?
Like, there's no way. Not a chance.
There is so much talent in this movie.
So much talent.
And it wasn't really that expensive either. It was a $13 million budget. I don't know how they did so well with so little money.
Well, I think... Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they must have saved on set, I guess, because it's really mostly just takes place in one locale.
Yeah, they built the boarding house in an abandoned airplane hangar so they could film it during the day, because it's all set at night, right?
Yeah, and then I don't know, like, I'm sure for the time the practical effects might have cost them some money, but I can't see it being a huge amount. And I will say, like, they definitely look dated, but watching the movie, you definitely get the sense that at the time they would have been good.
Oh yeah, like the effects match the set, which match the acting quality. Like it's all cohesive. It all works together.
Man, nobody's going to want to listen to an episode of us just gushing over a movie.
That's fine. We'll get into some quips later, I'm sure.
Okay, all right. I'll wait for it.
The cool thing you were talking about, like the effects, like you know where Billy Zane's cutting his palm with his fingernail.
Yeah.
Yeah, the glowing blood was just broken open glow sticks.
Well, that makes sense.
So maybe they were just really smart with how they spent the money.
It's possible. I mean, like, what you can get glow sticks at a dollar store. I can't imagine even back then they would have been that expensive. And if you're doing things like that, then you're definitely saving on budget. Like, what really could have cost them money? The explosion at the beginning?
Maybe. And I'm sure getting, like, William Sadler and Billy Zane... Was Billy Zane even popular at the time? Had he done The Phantom yet? Or did that ruin his career?
I mean, you would be the one to tell me. I don't follow this stuff that well.
Well, 2 years after this, he went on to do Titanic, so he was all right.
Yeah, so I'm sure his career did not suffer for it too much.
No. What do you think about the lore of having to shoot both eyes to kill the demons?
I thought it was all right. I mean, it made sense. That was where one of my nitpicks came in, actually.
Do tell.
Well, okay. Maybe not necessarily a nitpick because they covered themselves pretty well, but like when Wally, wait, what was his name again?
Yeah, Wally.
When Wally grabs the gun and Breaker's like, you gotta shoot the eyes, he hits them no problem. And I'm like...
That was an issue for me too, man.
But then later they show that he's got this trunk of artillery, and you gotta assume that, like, he must have been practicing at some point. But up until then, I was just like, okay, how is he that good of a crack shot?
And I don't think they covered it. I think it was more of a lone example of foreshadowing a character's actions.
Yeah, and that covered it, because as soon as I saw that, I wasn't as bothered by it, but there's like a very long stretch between where you're just like, how?
Yeah. Here's a nitpick for you.
Okay.
I really enjoy how they use the blood to seal entrances. I think it's pretty cool and creative idea. They use a lot of blood every time they seal off an entrance.
Okay.
More than that thing could hold.
That's your problem with it?
Well, also, if he's been on the run from them since 1917, and it was only filled then, yeah, I have a problem with that. That's almost 80 years of him on the run, and it still has all that blood in it.
Well, do we presume that he's been using it that whole time? Because when he's passing it on to Geraldine? I don't know what we want to call her. Like he says, I don't know when. Like, there might even be a period where you're not using it. And then, you know what I mean? Like, at some point, it's going to be called upon you. Now, we see her use it right away.
Are we then left to assume that as soon as all of the stars on his hand line up, he knows he's not going to make it through the night, and that's why he's using it so freely, because it's going to be filled with his blood?
It's very possible. Because, I mean,
That
one thing I wanted to ask you is, how soon do you think he knew that somebody was going to be taking his place?
I only caught this on my rewatch I did recently. It's the way he looks at Geraldine when she makes her, like, on-screen debut. Like, when she comes into that scene and he's already in the boarding house, he gives her, like, a really strange, stunned look, almost like acknowledging that she will take over for him. But then that's me having to build the story for myself, and I don't know if that's good or bad.
I mean, I feel the same way. Like, when they're all convinced that they're going to escape through the mine shafts, it seems like he's like, fine, go, until he sees that she's going to join them. She's the last one out. And that's finally when he decides to go down and join them.
Oh, I missed that.
So I don't know, like, I feel like I don't know, like, it's hard to say. And I think they do that on purpose because you're supposed to assume that when the stars align, he knows that that's it. It's going to be one of the 7. And you can assume that.
Right, that makes perfect sense.
You don't know, because he even says, like...
He even says it, yeah. We only had 5, and then...
And then he came with the cops, right? So it's also possible that he saw the stars align, saw that there was 7, and knew it was going to be one of them, and almost just kind of like he's eyeing up the possibilities. Because Roach wasn't there yet. Roach would have been more than 7, right?
Yes.
Right?
Let's see, there was Breaker, Geraldine, Irene, Cordelia, Wally. That was 5, yeah. Then, the 2 cops, and then Roach.
Yeah, so it's almost like...
So that would be 8.
It's very possible that he didn't know it was going to be her, necessarily, but he knew that the stars lined up, so it's going to be one of the 7, and he's kind of just looking at it and like, okay, there's a drunk... a dead cop, right? Like, it's almost like...
Oh, I forgot about Willie. So that would have been Breaker, Geraldine, Irene, Cordelia, Wally, Willie. Okay, so that would have been like 9.
But I don't count Breaker, because it would
that makes sense.
It would seem like he's expecting that he's going to die, and that he's looking for 7 other people, and he even makes the comment, I think, before Roach shows up, if I'm not mistaken. Right? So I didn't count him in the 7. Maybe I miscounted. But anyway, the point that I was trying to make is, if you look at the people that were there, she seemed like the most likely one. Right? So it could be that he didn't know it was going to be her necessarily. Like, maybe it would have surprised him that it was somebody else. But it could have just been that, like, okay, it's going to be one of these 7. She is younger, fitter. I mean, she just came out of jail, so, right? Like, she's at least, a little bit more of a survivalist, I guess. Right? Mm-hmm. So it could just be that, like, it's going to be one of these 7. I'd put my money on this one. It might not be that he knew it was going to be her.
Okay.
The thing that I'm curious about is if he knew that only the one was going to survive.
It seems to be how it plays out in the past.
Yeah, so, like, he must have also, like, in that situation, you assume he must be looking at the other people thinking, you're all going to die. But he's still trying to save all of them.
That is a very, very interesting point that I never really thought about before. That really just adds to his character as the hero, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this, if we're to assume that this has been going on, like you would assume with the flashbacks, like millennia, right?
Mm-hmm.
The chain must continue in the same way. One person survives. He was the sole survivor when he got the key. We don't know from how many other people, but they don't show anybody else. It's just him, right?
Yeah.
And yet he's still trying to break that cycle by saving everybody. And again, I don't think it's because he's just trying to cast the net wide, thinking maybe any one of these can be the one. I'm like, it's fairly certain some of these aren't going to be, right?
Yeah.
But he's still trying to save everyone because he can't just accept the fact that only one person is going to survive the end of the day.
Which is commendable, but at the same time, I think the movie's trying to push an idea of fate. What with all of the stars aligning on his palm happens before everybody shows up.
I don't know.
Other than that, I really like where you're going with this, but that kind of throws a bit of a wrench into things, you know? Because as soon as Uncle Willie shows him the boarding house, it's like, this is a church. He looks at his hand and realizes this is the right place.
Is that, do you think, why he didn't try to escape?
No. I'm more so making a point of, like, this is an issue of fate. Like, if the stars have aligned up, that means he knows that there's going to be at least 7 people there without actually knowing who's there.
Yeah, I don't know. But we sure are digging to find something here. But that's the thing. I like it. I like that it's not in your face with it immediately. It leaves you some room to interpret it, but also gives you the story. Like, it's not like you're lacking for the story. They're just letting you fill in some of the background pieces on your own.
Yeah. Yeah. But do you want to talk about the humor in this show, though? Or this film, sorry?
Sure.
It's all Billy Zane and CCH Pounder.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, who else?
Like, even sight gags. Like when Billy Zane's trying to get Roach to clean up the blood seal at the top of the stairs. He just opens his mouth and that sponge rolls out.
Mm-hmm.
I laugh at that every time I see it. Laughing out loud, not just chuckling.
See, I think the stupidity of Roach in that scene prevents me from laughing. Because I have a real problem with, and it happens in so many horror movies, people are stupid. Right?
Oh, he is beyond stupid in this movie.
There is no question that Billy Zane is not going to be someone that's going to keep his word. So, like,
no.
You see the sponge and, like, yeah, okay, maybe you're supposed to laugh. But instead, I'm sitting here thinking, come on, man. How stupid can you be? Like, you know this isn't going to work out in your favor. Right? And like, Billy Zane just flat out says, like, oh, one more thing. I lied. Right? It's like, this is exactly what you were told would happen. Oh, he'll kill you anyway, but you still go with it.
Well, even things like when he spits on one of the demons over the railing, and Breaker goes, "Hey, they hate that." You're like, this is the dumbest character you could have in a horror movie, like, well, amped up to 11.
Can we talk about the moment that I think is the stupidest for him?
Mm-hmm.
In the basement, when he shoots his old boss.
Oh my god.
And breaks the barrier. It's like, there are so many reasons why that is stupid. One, ammunition is clearly low. So there's no point in wasting ammunition, especially when they're behind, like, a barrier, right?
Yep.
2, that's clearly not your boss anymore, man. Like, And 3, you broke the barrier. You've seen 3 or 4 of these things die already, and you know that they don't just fall over. They, like, explode. Complete moron. But it made me think about those barriers, too. Why do the barriers stop them?
The blood barriers? Why do they stop the demons?
Yeah.
The blood of Christ?
Yes. But they seem to only cover that door or window.
Yeah. Whatever. And then I find it really weird that it then works at the top of the stairwell.
Does it seem like they couldn't just break a hole through one of the flimsy walls?
Oh, yeah. They're not smart, man.
Billy Zane is clearly smart.
He is clearly smart.
So, like,
which raises another point.
That's a bit of a continuity error for me, because you could say, oh, well, breaking a hole in the wall, the barrier is not just for that door. You can only see it in that door, but it covers like that whole area. But then it wouldn't matter that they blew up the one in the basement, because it would just mean the bigger hole has the barrier, right?
Yeah.
So Billy Zane could just get into a car and drive through the one wall. There's no reason that they can't make a new entrance. But no, we're going to reside ourselves to just the doors and the windows, because this hotel clearly looks like it's made of like impenetrable steel.
We can only enter through well-established entrances or exits.
Right? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. I've got another nitpick too, man.
All right, bring it on.
How did Billy Zane possess everybody else in town while he was there the whole time?
But we don't know that he was there the whole time, because there is a fairly lengthy period of time where we don't see him. Like, think of the entire time when Roach and Cordelia try to get to the truck.
Oh, yeah.
You only see the creatures for a while. The creature breaks in. They're fighting with the deputy. You're only seeing the creatures. Now, it's not a huge amount of time. It might be 10 to 15 minutes of screen time. But you can assume that this guy probably has the ability to, I don't know, maybe travel quickly. Or like, he has some powers that he's obviously not using on display. That didn't bother me too much.
Yeah, all right. But at the same time, like, he can't fast travel or anything, or otherwise he would not be in a car chasing Breaker at the beginning.
But that's the thing. We don't know what powers he has. Because
that's true.
Even when he's possessing them, he's like talking to them telepathically. We don't really see it too, like...
Well, and that's the thing too. Maybe he doesn't actually have to physically be there to do it.
Well, clearly he doesn't, and the barriers don't seem to stop his thoughts from going through. So what else could he do?
That's a very good point. I like how they left that really open. They don't really show an extent of what this powerful demon can do.
Well, which makes you think, like, okay, if there's another demon that's going after Geraldine at the end, what powers will he have, right? I don't think that they were ever actually intending to make a sequel. That's just the way that they end things. But it makes you realize, like, yeah, there's different ones out there. Like, you know, he talks about how the eye thing only works on the lesser demons, right?
Yeah.
But then you see that and you're like, okay, so what kind of different levels of other demons, and are they all uniform, or do they have different abilities, right? Like, it just makes it feel like it's bigger than that night.
Yeah, agreed. Although, speaking of the whole eye thing again, Billy Zane getting that arrow through the eye was pretty awesome.
That was a great scene. And, like, falling off the balcony and stuff is just fantastic. And then I love how when we see him, like, again later, he's wearing sunglasses.
Yeah.
Right? And he clearly doesn't need them, right? Because his eye had essentially regenerated because he gets stabbed again. But it's just... like, they pay attention to most of the little details.
Yeah.
Since we're not really on any sort of kind of formal train here,
just a discussion.
Why did Irene have to blow herself up, or the deputy?
Hey, I don't know why Bob stayed there. That made no sense.
Or why she did it.
Maybe she did it because of that whole arm thing.
And
maybe she couldn't deal with that.
And?
I'm missing your point.
Well, she's trying to survive up until that point. And there's no reason that the grenades have to be strapped to her. You know those things can be thrown, right?
Yeah, well, she's also drunk.
Well, yes. But I would still think that, like, even if you're impaired and your judgment is not at its finest, right? But you are like, hey, grenades. You probably have some recollection to prior to being intoxicated that, like, yeah, people usually throw these things. Your first reaction isn't like, oh, I gotta strap this to myself.
I don't know, man. If I were running a boarding house in the middle of nowhere, and one night demons started invading and tore my arm off, and I chugged a bottle of vodka, and then found one way to fight back with them, I don't know. I wouldn't say that I would be thinking clearly myself.
Yeah,
I
but
give the character the benefit of the doubt there.
Okay, fine. I'll concede on that one. But then, yeah, why did Bob stay?
Yeah, I never understood that.
Like, he's watching their back. Great. Like, he can't still run up the stairs? I don't understand that.
Speaking of running up the stairs, though, I do love the fact that when they show Danny in the attic earlier that he's reading a Tales from the Crypt comic.
You say earlier, but he's reading the same comic again when he gets possessed.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant, sorry.
Well, he's reading it earlier when he's up there with Willie, but then he's reading it again after, which is when he gets possessed, because the comic...
Yeah, by the comic book, yeah.
Yeah. And yes, I love that little... I don't know what you would call it. Homage?
A nod.
Pardon?
It's definitely a nod to the series.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other nitpicks?
Not really, man.
I think you're going to be confused by the one that bothered me the most.
Go for it.
And, like, this one really bothered me, and I don't know why. So, Geraldine, whatever, takes her clothes off down to a tank top and underwear for some reason.
Yeah, I never got that.
I don't know why she couldn't cover herself in blood with the clothes she's wearing. Okay.
No idea.
But fine, whatever. That happens. And she soaks herself in blood, right? Which, obviously, it's a good plan, because he can't touch her. But what are these showers spraying?
I have no idea.
She gets washed. And then when Zane carries her down in, like, the shower curtain wrapped up or whatever and throws her on the ground, her underwear and tank top is as white as it can be, like, the first day out of the package.
Yeah,
Even
that makes
if
no
you
sense.
wash blood off, it's gonna be stained. And she comes out immaculate. And that bothered me. Like, why it could, like, and it wouldn't be hard to stain that stuff red for the scenes.
But
Why?
you don't have bleach showers?
No, I don't. But
The movie is far from perfect.
Whatever the secret is, I'm sure, like, dry cleaners and laundromats everywhere would love to have it. And yes, that is the single biggest, like, nitpick I had with the entire movie.
That says a lot for the movie, though, don't you think?
Yeah, well, I said to you right when we started, this was a great movie, and I would have difficulty thinking of ways to talk about it. Because I couldn't just sit here for, like, 45 minutes saying everything was great, everybody was great, everything's great. Like, there's no discussion there, right? So I was kind of maybe looking for nitpicks a little bit more.
Yeah.
But that one just stood out to me. It really bothered me.
Did you have any favorite scenes?
Why don't I get back to you on that one and think about it for a minute? Did you have any?
I actually loved the entire scene where you meet all the characters in the boarding house. There's something about that to me that is just so incredibly 90s and really reminded me of back in 1995 when I had watched these horror movies that were coming out. They all had a similar kind of feel and look to them, and it was pure nostalgia trip for me. Not even the dialogue, just the look.
Okay.
But there's, like, little tiny things that I love about this movie. Like when Breaker dies and Geraldine closes his eyes, like that trope in every death scene movie. When Billy Zane enters, he leans down and just opens them back up and leaves them. Like, it's such a dick move.
I'm pretty sure if I had a favorite scene, it was something that Billy Zane did. Because I definitely think that, like, anytime he was on screen, it was the highlight.
Yeah. I don't want to say he carried the entire film, but he's definitely up there.
It's not that he carried it, it's almost like he elevated it to the next level. Like, the movie was already good, and he pushed it to great.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair statement. Right. Like, Sadler is awesome, Zane's awesome, Pounder's awesome, Miller, Pinkett, Church, everybody did really well.
Honestly, like, I was trying to think of it because I'm assuming we're going to talk about actors, weakest performance, best performance. And I'm even trying like, oh, maybe Danny will be the worst because child actors. And it's like, no,
Nope.
even he did fine. Right? Like, there wasn't a bad role in the movie.
No, there wasn't at all.
And I mean, they kept it fairly limited. The only cast outside of who's in that motel are like Danny's parents, who we see for a few seconds.
Twice.
Yeah. So, they can't really have good or bad performances. So it could have just been like, okay, we only really need to cast 10 people. We're going to get the best 10 people that we can find, and we're going to kind of like let them do their thing. I just don't see that they had a room for error there. I mean, maybe whoever the casting director for the movie was the best one.
Yeah. They definitely knew how to spend a little money, like as little as possible, to still like get a solid cast and set and music, which is awesome. Actually, that's something I want to talk about too.
Okay.
The music was not done by Danny Elfman, but still had like a weird cross between horror film and Tales from the Crypt TV show, which I thought was nice. But I also felt like the movie looked like the show. I was stunned by how well it looked in comparison. Like it go hand in hand. So I looked into it, and they actually got the cinematographer from the show to do the cinematography for the film. And I think that was one of the smartest choices they could have made.
I mean, it definitely has that feel. Like I said earlier when we were talking about that intro, it felt like a movie version of the show. It didn't feel like it was stepping on its own type thing.
Yeah, they nailed it. They totally nailed it.
I'm surprised.
Did you watch until the end credits were over?
Oh no, probably not.
There's a post-credits sequence where the Crypt Keeper's talking about the next movie, Dead Easy, which never happened.
Oh, no, I didn't make it that far. Because after you have the movie end, you also have the scenes with the Crypt Keeper, right? Yeah. So, because you bookend with that. And then
it's also not a movie you would think to have a post-credit sequence.
No. And to be honest, it's probably just a little gag, right?
Was
it good?
The movie was never made.
No. Was the...
Oh, the sequence? Oh, it was just a few seconds. It was fine. Apparently you can't get a copy of the movie with that at the end anymore, though.
Really?
Yeah, they removed it from future releases. Luckily, I still have a DVD that came out. I think of the first printing it did for DVD. Yeah. So it's still on there.
Do you think they just took it out because they never did the movie and maybe they really were intending to do it?
Yeah.
So
they did do another one, though.
Well, I know they did other Tales of the Crypt movie, Tales from the Crypt movie, but I didn't know if they were intending to do, like, more of a direct sequel.
No, this one was, it's called Dead Easy, but it also went by the title of Fat Tuesday. It was the New Orleans zombie film, but apparently it didn't have as much humor, so they weren't really sure if it would fit with the Tales from the Crypt family of movie and TV shows. That's why they went and did Bordello of Blood, which also has the key in it from this movie.
Okay, all right. Wow, I'm surprised the box office was so low.
Right? They didn't make their money back, yet it was still considered a financial success. It made what? It cost $13 million and made back a total of 21.
That's what I'm seeing. 21.1. Isn't that making their money back? They spent 13.
No. When you make a movie, your budget, you basically double that to take into account all of the advertising that has to be done.
Okay.
So basically, for most films to be successful, they have to make back twice what they spent originally.
Well, how am
now,
I
don't know what the advertising
that?
campaign was. So maybe they just only advertised in, like, I know I had a comic book with a full teaser poster on the back cover, but I didn't have cable growing up, so I didn't see any, like, TV ads or anything like that.
I miss those full ads in old comic books. They were always fantastic and so dated. I I actually like pulling out my old comics and looking at what kinds of stuff they were advertising.
Speaking of which, did you ever read any of the Tales from the Crypt comics? The old EC comics?
Nope.
They're really fun, really short stories. You can read each story in maybe like a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And it's just really concise morality tales with like gore, horror, crime. They're fun.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about this one, or?
I think I've said everything I could say. I love this movie. I think it's absolutely amazing. And would you recommend this to anyone? I'm assuming yes.
That question seems kind of pointless at this point. I mean,
I know, but we ask every time, so.
Clearly I've tipped my hat at this point, and I would recommend this movie. Yeah. Obviously, just take into account a little bit of some of the dated stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't bring up the like practical effects looking older as a nitpick because I was able to put my mindset in that it was brought out, how many years ago.
It's a 25-year-old movie.
Yeah, if you're the kind of person who can't look past that, then maybe don't watch it. But other than that, I'd recommend it to anybody. I don't think we kept that very well hidden here, man.
No, we did not. But after rewatching this, it makes me want to go out and buy the special edition Blu-ray that came out a couple of years ago, because I really hope there's some special features on there. I would love to know more about the making of this movie, what the actors thought. I hope there was a commentary maybe, but the DVD's bare bones. Thing is, I don't mind double dipping or triple dipping on this movie. I will buy every version that they release of it. I love it that much. Definite recommend.
I really hope that all of the actors look back at this movie as like one that they're happy to have been a part of.
How could they not?
I don't know, right? Like, aside from maybe because it didn't make back its money, but like, there's always those movies where actors are like, oh, why did I do that one? I really hope that they all look back at this one fondly because it was a great movie.
Yeah, agreed. And I don't think they would look back on it poorly because it didn't make as much money, because when it comes down to it, they still got paid. Yeah.
I mean, I guess the amount of money it makes doesn't impact their pay for the actual shooting, unless...
Exactly. This is probably the most feel-good horror movie I have. Mm-hmm. I can throw it on at any point. I don't have to pay attention to it. Just knowing it's on and hearing a few lines here and there, like, is that you saying yes? No, that's me giving you the finger.
That was a good one, yeah.
Like, you can just chuckle, like, do chores while it's on. It's one of those movies. It's so versatile. I love it.
I love how you didn't even mention how, like, Billy Zane's reaction in that is like, oh, I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
He's just like, he just accepts it. Like, he chops it up as a loss. He's not even like, oh, I'm going to get you. He's like, no, all right, we'll be back. Right?
Fair enough. All right.
I think this is also our, like, most feel-good episode we've done of the podcast thus far.
Yeah, because I don't have to defend everything.
No, you don't. See what happens? See what happens when you actually pick a good movie?
Okay.
Speaking of which, Ben, what are we watching next week?
All right. Next week, we are watching 2005's Dungeons & Dragons: Wrath of the Dragon God.
In another time, it was hidden. Its power has been growing.
I had the strangest visions.
The tremors are growing in frequency.
Now, an unknowing world,
Life begins anew.
has awakened its curse.
The orb is mine.
What shall I tell my people?
Tell them to flee. It will kill us all.
Beric, it is your duty to lead this quest.
Start with Lux. No one in Ishmir is more ferocious in battle. For wisdom, there is Dorian, a cleric.
Sorcery must be fought with sorcery.
There's always Ormelian.
The elf wizard.
If secrecy is the goal of this quest, no one is more stealthy than Nim.
It's a trap.
What chance does Ishmir have against me?
When the corruption reaches your brain, you will be reborn as one of the undead.
all burn.
Yes, we've all heard that one before.
I will rain down my revenge. Good times.
You cannot win.
Wrong.
Kill them all. Drain their lives. Dungeons and Dragons. The elemental might.
All right. Well, I will get right on that one. And until then, have a good one.
All the best, guys.